Did you hear? Okay. Ready? Hello, I am Vice President Jen Stevenson, and I call this meeting to order. We will start with the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I want to excuse President Garza. He is unable to attend this meeting. He may Zoom in for our 7 o'clock regular meeting, but we'll see depending upon how things are going for him. All right, so welcome to all of our guests and special attendees tonight. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Perfect.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Ken and seconded by Lindsay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Perfect, passes 4-0. All right, do we have any public comment for this special meeting? No public comment. All right, we will go straight to the budget presentation. Am I turning that to you, Pete?
So appreciate the opportunity tonight to share the district's progress towards putting together a budget for the next school year. We know that we've hired Amy Suarez as our Executive Director of Finance and Business Operations, and as soon as we hired her, we jumped right into our annual audit. And so she pedaled really fast to keep up with that process and got through that and a nice report, and we're able to finish that successfully. And then we said, by the way, the budget's due. So she and her team have been working really hard to put together a comprehensive budget that identifies and helps us address the priorities of the system and is fiscally responsible. So we're excited to share with you kind of where we're at in that process and give you a few weeks to think about some questions and comments around it, and then we'll get the school year started. So we'll turn it over to Amy and her team.
Hi there, good evening. I'm here to present the 21-22 budget. So on slide 2, the Board of Directors are listed, and they are the governing body of the Othello School District. They will be reviewing the budget, having any questions, and will be approving the budget at our budget hearing on August 23rd. The superintendent and his executive staff are the ones who will be executing the budget and making sure that we're being fiscally responsible and implementing the budget as it's indicated. Before I go any further, I want to say that it takes a village, and I have part of my village here. It's been quite the transition into this position, but I'm very thankful for the team that I have, and for Becky Montgomery, who helped me through this process, and everyone else. So the budget timeline is today we'll be doing the budget presentation. We have also been advertising for the budget hearing on August 9th and August 16th. We will then have the budget hearing on August 23rd, and hopefully after that and all the questions have been resolved, we will do an official adoption of the budget.
When is it due to the state, Amy?
It is due on August 31st.
Perfect, thank you.
So a budget is a value statement. We want to develop a fiscally sound operating budget and forecast. We want to create an alignment between our budget and our values. We want to comply with all local, state, and federal mandates. We will also be following OSPI accounting requirements, maintaining the district programs, and we want to set expectations and hold ourselves accountable to the highest standards of integrity, learning, fiscal responsibility, and transparency to all. Some school finance lingo budget is a tool that we provide where we estimate our expected expenses and revenues over a period of time, for this being the 21-22 school year. Projection is when we forecast beyond that for future expenditures, revenues, and the district needs. A new term for this coming fiscal year is ESSER. It's for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. That is federal monies that we will be receiving. CARES, I kind of left that in there. We have exhausted most of our CARES money that we received during this school year. IPD is an implicit price deflector. It is the amount that the OSPI applies to salary allocations that they are given to the districts. MSOCs are miscellaneous supplies and other costs, such as supplies, services, and travel. And OSPI then, of course, is the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Thank you. Those key words are always so exciting to memorize, but it's great to have them in form. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to pause after every slide.
Not every slide, I hope.
Okay, our budget initiatives. What are some of the major changes for this coming year? The ESSER funding. Those will be available to us for 3 fiscal years, fiscal 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24. We have planned for carryover of funds in the special programs. We will continue to support facility and technology needs. There has been some increased staffing at the high school due to the enrollment growth, and we have a soft implementation of transitional kindergarten.
Can you just a quick definition of transitional kindergarten, and where is that soft? You said a soft transition.
Yeah, I can take that one from a teaching and learning
Implement.
perspective. So several months ago, Jennifer Garza, who directs our early learning programs, presented an idea that's got some energy across the state of a particular funding model that you can access for what we call pre-K now, but we can call transitional kinder students. So we can qualify for some additional funding and some additional staffing. It does have some additional requirements, so we had to hire a certificated teacher. A lot of the work at our pre-K for the last couple of years has been by our classified staff, supported by Jennifer and Paula Lang. But now we've been able to hire another person, so some expansion there, and we're going to give it a try and see how it works, see if it works for our students and our staff, and if possible, pursue additional funding to expand the program. So it really is just a one trial, one staff member, one classroom, but I don't want to minimize it. It's a really big deal.
Super exciting.
Awesome, thank you.
So the district has 5 major funds. You probably all aware of it, but just kind of wanted to add that in here in case there was anyone else who was new to this. So we have the general fund, the capital projects fund, the debt service fund, the ASB fund, and the transportation vehicle fund. Some impacts from the legislative. We have OSPI increased our salary funding by 2%, the IPD factor. We have the ESSER funding. Our SEB insurance, the rate got adjusted. It actually went from $1,000 down to $968 per funded FTE. We will be receiving 3 funded days for certificated professional development. In 21-22, one of those days must be used for cultural competency, diversity, and inclusion training. This year, it was for social emotional learning. That is some direction that we received from OSPI in June, and it'll alternate between years for the next several years. In the next few slides, we're going to go over enrollment, but I kind of did some enrollment notes. We did a conservative roll-up from current grade to next grade level. The 10-year graph shows that district enrollment has increased by 717 students in the past 9 years. Those are the 9 years I've been here. There was a drop in enrollment in 2021 of 38 students. This had not happened in the past 10 years, but most likely due to the COVID impact. 21-22 kinder enrollment includes 18 transitional kindergarten students. This is a new program that we will be implementing. There is a projected 34 student drop in the elementaries, 19 in the middle schools, but an increase of 98 students at the high school. So this is more of an overview by grade level. The next slide. The 2021 is where we are at 2021, and then where we are projected to be at in 21-22 for an increase of 45 overall. The next slide is another one by grade level for the 10-year enrollment. Just if you wanted to kind of look at the changes by grade. And then if you wanted to see a graph, I've also included a graph.
I love your attention to detail, Amy. It's so awesome. Graphs and everything.
Yep. So the next slide is kind of a summary of all 5 of our funds, beginning with their fund balance. And fund balance is actual cash, money that we have sitting in our Adams County, our bank. So kind of the beginning cash balance of each fund, how much we're expecting in revenues, how much we're expecting in expenditures, and then the excess of the revenues over expenditures, and the ending fund balance. So this is a summary, and then we'll go into more detail. This next slide shows a comparison of what we are budgeting this year compared to what we budgeted last year, or the current year that we're in 2021. You'll see what stands out the most is probably the capital projects, the big change, and that's because of the transfer that we did from our general fund to the capital projects fund. So that's a summary of revenues and expenses for every fund. Any questions so far?
So transportation is a fairly good sized chunk. I mean, general fund always goes up because that is tied to our student population, correct?
Mhm.
But why is transportation almost a 5.5% jump over general? Any ideas on that?
Transportation of 5% over general. Sorry, can you?
So on the top section.
Oh, 13.
Right.
Oh, okay. It goes by depreciation value, and it's a tool that we use that OSPI provides, and the older buses have less depreciation, and it's just how our cycle goes.
Okay,
And
so
that's how-
depreciation is really where
Right.
that factor is,
Yes.
because of course it's tied to that general fund too.
Yeah.
But, and the population. Okay, that makes sense, thank you. Because on the bottom section, it's like mirrors each other. I guess that's why. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So now we'll go into more detail about the general fund. So this is a high-level accounting of our expected revenues by program, or by category. So our levy and local non-tax, we're expecting 3.7. And then I also have included what it was budgeted for in 2021. So then it goes into our state general, our state special purpose, our federal programs, our community programs, and sale of equipment, which we did not budget anything for this year. The big thing here to note is our federal programs now includes ESSER money. The amount that we budgeted this year for ESSER is $6.1 million of the expected about $14.5 million. The next slide has the same information, but it gives you more, it gives you a description of what each category is. gives you a description. So, I don't know if you kind of, then the next slide after that is our staff needs for this coming year, some changes. We hired 3 certificated teachers at the high school due to the increase. We have 1 STEAM teacher at McFarland, 1 TK teacher, transitional kindergarten teacher. And I just wanted to make note that the 18 students that we're projecting to have in TK will be counted as kindergartners. So they will go on our P223 report. We will also be using some ESSER money for teacher floaters at our buildings to address learning loss. And we are adding 1 full-time mechanic assistant. And I kind of wanted to say that we do have 2 openings, one for the one that has been open and then one for the added position. So if you know anybody, we're still.
Amy, the transitional kindergarten children, are they like kids going into kindergarten normally, or are
No,
they
they're-
like 4-year-olds that are preschool still? Okay.
They're 4-year-olds. And they're going to go through, Jen and her team will go through some assessment, and we'll pick the 18 students that go into that
Is it
classroom.
someone that's having a harder time transitioning to, okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Maybe, Pete, at a future meeting, we could have some more details for that, just so we fully understand and,
I would love some details on the funding as well.
both
Because I
both
think,
the funding and the concept and the what and the why and the how. And
I think,
right?
yeah,
I think that we're all asking many questions there, and that would be great to just have it all detailed.
Yep, I'll have a conversation with Jennifer, and we'll set up a time under presentations or superintendent informational items and give the board some background on where we're headed with that.
Oh,
Perfect.
thanks. Looks like a good program. We're just not quite fully knowledgeable.
And
Well-
poor Amy, that is not, Amy knows how the money works, but maybe not the TK program.
Right.
Right, thank
well,
you.
anytime we can get extra funding
Yeah.
and it doesn't come out of the levy is perfection.
Yes.
So anything to help our program sounds like a
Yes.
great idea.
The next slide shows, so in the next several slides, you're going to see our expenditures, and they're going to be broken in different ways. So the first one shows it by object, and when we say object, it's OSPI accounting lingo. So object is like certified salaries, classified salaries, benefits and payroll, supplies and instructional resources, purchase services, travel, and capital outlay. And these are totals of all programs together. So that would be certificated salaries of all programs. So all federal, state programs together. And it also shows you what we budgeted last year and where the difference is. The percentage differences.
So most of these are, well, they're all fairly small, but the supplies and instructional resources is a much larger number, because I like to look at what's different or what stands out. I mean, the capital outlay is because we've moved money and changed some things that way, but why is supplies and instructional resources so large? Can you answer that?
Yes, I am ready for that.
Awesome, because you know my questions.
So the reason is we took we listened to an OSPI presentation, and they indicated that it's the way we code things. So we were coding our Chromebook purchases as capital outlay, and we were advised that it's not the total purchase cost, but per unit. So therefore, we had to change them and put them under supplies.
So that negative 1.79 and positive 2.02 basically
Yes,
almost negates each other.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to
interesting.
put them in capital outlay, and now we're putting them in supplies.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So now this next slide is our expenses by activity. So this will tell you how much we spent in instructional support, operations, and central office. And there's activity is OSPI's accounting of where things are coded. So for example, anything that's teaching is coded to activity 27. So we're able to run reports on that activity. So that's why it's called activity. But I kind of broke it up between the three major departments. Any questions? Okay. So then the next slide is our expenses by program. So it's the same total expenditures, but they're broken by regular instruction, ESSERS, special education, vocational, compensatory, other programs, community services, and support services.
What is compensatory education? What
So
does that
on the
mean?
next slide,
Oh, I see. I didn't flip.
on the next slide, it has what it is, and it's our categorical programs, which is like a LAP, Learning Assistance Program, or Title I, or Migrant.
Okay.
And then the other big one is support services, and those are also broken down by big chunks, where the big chunks of money goes.
So most of this is grant funding. Most of those big programs.
Yes, but the biggest one, of course, is regular instruction, which is our basic ed.
Right, just under that compensatory stuff. Okay.
Yes,
Depends
are-
upon our specific students that we have and their needs
And
of
what they
those
qualify
individuals.
for, yes.
Students, right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so then our next slide. So the next two slides will show what we budgeted in 21-22, what we budgeted in 2021, and then we're going to compare that to what we actually spent in 19-20. So when we completed the 2021 budget, the 19-20 year had not been finalized, the year end. So this kind of tells you where we landed in 19-20, because that kind of gives us a good picture of what we actually spent. Of course, 19-20, COVID year. Kind of want to point out one of the big things, that, again, I know we keep saying it, but the ESSER money under program groups. In 19-20, the direction we received by OSPI was to code the expenses to the programs where they occurred. So we coded some to basic ed, some to special ed, some to voc, wherever we spent it, we just added a trailer, and that's how we tracked it. This year, we received guidance that they're going to have their own program codes. So they have their own revenue codes, their own program codes, so therefore, they have their own line this year, and that's where you'll see federal stimulus of $6.1 million. That's our ESSER money.
So you have past ESSER and CARES money set aside in the same way, but they're just under all of these other areas. You could pull them out if you
Yes.
needed to or something
Mhm.
to prove to state or
I
whatever.
have very special
I'm
reports.
sure you can. But this year, it's just, they want it marked differently.
Correct.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
it's just our accounting codes. So with the CARES money, we put a trailer of 0019. We ran it wide open on all our programs, and it spit out the amount. Now it's going to have its actual program, so it's not all over the place. It has its own program.
Okay.
The other thing that I wanted to point out about the 19-20 actuals was what we actually spent in our expenditures were 65 million, and that was, there wasn't as much travel because of COVID. We didn't do summer school, that kind of stuff. So that's why I said it's a COVID year, so it probably would have been a little bit more.
That's why the net revenue is so high
Mhm.
comparatively. Also, my question is, oh shoot, now I've lost it. Under 70, other programs, in the 2021 budget, under program groups, that's over $1 million, where the others are like 170,000.
Okay.
You're gonna say, go to the next page and it
Nope,
tells you?
I have an
Okay.
answer for you.
You have
So,
answers for all of it, awesome.
so last year, it takes a village, so I went over it with my team, and I said, okay, give me the questions so I can answer them. So that 1 million, we hadn't received guidance from OSPI where the ESSER money, the the CARES money was gonna land, and that's where it was budgeted in that
Okay.
group.
Okay,
So $1 million of that is COVID.
CARES.
CARES.
Gotcha.
Okay, the next slide. So this is also a comparison. Like I said, the next several slides, kind of wanted to compare it to the actual, what we actually did in 1920. So it's a comparison of what we budgeted for this coming year, what we budgeted for this current year, and what we actually spent. And this one is by activity and objects. So in the next slide, our fund balance, our actual cash for 21-22, we are going to project a beginning fund balance of 11.5 million. We're going to have revenues of 77 million and expenses of 76.9, with our ending fund balance being 11,697,000, and that's a net revenues over expenses of 138,000, and you can see the difference of what we budgeted last year. If you see the beginning fund balance in 2021 compared to 21-22, that's because of the transfer. So the next slide is state law requires us to put a slide or inform you that how much we received in MSOC funding on our F203 on our revenue forecast. We are projected to receive 6,042,000, and then what we're projected to spend is 6,618,000. So there's a difference there of 576,510 that comes from the levy. And those are just for the MSOCs.
Thank you for putting in parentheses what MSOCs mean. I mean, I know you told us about 20 pages ago, but
Yep.
material supplies and operating costs, thank you. And thank you for giving this, so our tired eyes don't have to worry about seeing it up there and seeing it right in front of
Yeah,
us.
I
This
was
is
I was
so
debating about
awesome.
doing that, and I'm like, I won't be able to see it. I need it here.
Right.
So.
Right, this is great.
Okay, so next slide. Oh, sorry, that was last year's information in case you asked for it. So the next slides are our four-year budget forecast. So we're going to start off with our enrollment, and it's the same process. We kept our kinder students at about 320 students for the next this year being 318, and then the next several years at 320, and then just kind of rolled everybody down. if you'll notice, that will mean that in 23 and 24, we will have less students.
Is that because we're losing part of the bubble that had always
Yes.
been referred to as the bubble?
I would think so.
Okay.
I think the other issue there is you can see how they've used 320 as that baseline. In the past, I think we've been using 350, and we just try to gauge that on the we're still uncertain about the impacts of kinder registration and parents opting out last year because they didn't think an online experience was the right one for their kinder student. So I think we just need to be cautious about where that's going to go in the next couple of years and see where they come.
Yeah, so that 318 on 21-22, it's 300 kinder students plus the 18 TK students. So depending on where we go from here, that could also affect our enrollment.
Well, and just because you have to suggest what the enrollment is for the next 4 years doesn't mean that that's truly what it is, but I understand that the state forces you now to come
Yes.
up with these numbers so you can come up with all kinds of crazy numbers for the next 4 years.
Yes, you try to forecast as much as you can, but you know, you can only know what the legislator is going to do next year and what our enrollment. I mean, there's people say, well, what about this? What if, you know, all these people come in and, like, well, until we see them, we're not going to count them. So then the next one is our general fund for year. So just wanted to say that I'm projecting conservatively, kind of showing a worst case scenario. I increased our revenues by the IPD factors, and then I increased it by the increase or decrease of students, just by the percentage, and then took into consideration the ESSER money, so, and the effect that that would do. I also wanted to point out that ESSER is one-time money, so it's not something that we want to use for the long. So if we continue to, oh, and then in, hold on just one second. Okay, I think I go into more detail in the next slide. So on the next slide, you can see where I projected our revenues and expenses to be at. So if you notice, our federal stimulus, our ESSER money, it goes from 6.1 million to 4 million to 4.3 million, and then 0 in 24-25, and then the effect that has on our expenses over revenues. And that's where, if you see on the previous slide, where if we continue to spend, you know, about the same increase every year, where we land in 24-25, down to 7.3 million. Any questions on that? We're going to move forward to the ASB. This one's a little bit harder to forecast, only because we don't really, haven't really studied the effects of the HB 1660. So what I went ahead and did was kind of kept our revenues about the same of what we're projecting it to be next year, because that's, we took the HB 1660 into consideration. And then if we let the children, if we let our students spend the way they've been spending, what the effects will be in 4 years. So this will make us take a look and analyze the situation and come to a conclusion that we have to decrease expenses, find other revenues, apply for grants if available. I know that there have been some, and maybe have the general fund support the ASB for the students. That's something we can talk about in the future budget.
Do you want to give them just a couple of sentences about HB 1660 and what that means?
I wasn't ready for that one, but it's just, we're not able to charge our students for athletic, like ASB cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, so in essence, what school districts are wrestling with, at least in Washington State, we can't charge fees for many things anymore, and that has had an impact on ASB funding. So I think the driver behind that was to provide opportunities for all students to participate in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. I'm not sure they thought about the impact at the local level, and so it's up to us to figure out how to backfill that and deal with that concern.
Okay, so the next slide is our debt service fund. This is where we pay our bond. You can see the projected revenues. Increased slightly because our values go up, our property values, and then our expenses are our actual expenses on for our bond repayment. So that's in pretty good shape. The next one is our capital projects. The beginning fund balance on that one for this year is $922,000, and that's still from the transfer from the general fund that we will finish the end of the school year. And what we plan on using it for this coming year is, depending on board approval, is like purchasing the portables that we are under lease at Lutakaga, Hiawatha, and Wahitas. There's some other needs that that the buildings need, and that's like carpet replacements, roof repairs, removing the Husky courtyard. That leaves us with the ending balance of about $114,000 to carry over to the following year. And then I put in there as a 4-year forecast is possibly doing some work to our athletic fields. I know it's been brought to our attention that some of our fields need some work. So I put that in there. That's to be determined. If the general fund can do it, we'll do it from the general fund, but that's just putting it out there. So without any other transfers, and all we have is interest. In 24-25, our ending fund balance of the capital projects will be $29,966. The next fund is the vehicle fund, and we've kind of explained that. That goes by, we receive the revenues depending on the depreciation of our bus fleet, and then the expenditures. This coming year, we just received the bid. About two buses will cost us about $325,000, a little bit more than this past school year, because we asked the air conditioning be installed on the buses for future summer school, learning loss, that kind of stuff. Take care of our kiddos so they can continue to go to summer school. We'll purchase 2 buses in 22-23, 1 bus in 23-24, and then 2 again in 24-25. Okay, so what are our next steps? So our next step is on the August 23rd regular board meeting. We'll have a budget hearing, have any further questions, any public comments, and if everything's okay, we're good to go. Do the resolution and the adoption of the budget, and then turn in the budget to OSPI by August 31st.
Amy, I'd like to compliment you. Very nice job.
Thank
Very nice
you.
job on the presentation and the breakdown of it to us. Very easy to understand, even the breaking down of the terms and further on which each one of the funds went into and the categories and stuff. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Second time.
Ken. I appreciate that. Like I said, it's a whole team. I like to collaborate. It's a team effort. I did a lot of hard work, but it wasn't all just me. So, thank you, Angie.
This is how I like to read it.
Love having these, thank you.
Yeah.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
And amazing that you already anticipated all of the questions and knew how to deal with all of that. So wonderful. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions for Amy or her village? Amy, do you have anything else for us?
Not at this time, but I'm
Awesome
always
stuff.
available if you guys have any questions. You guys want to go into more detail? There's 250 pages. I'm more than happy to go through it with you guys.
I think we're good with 36 that you gave us. Yeah, those are 36 in-depth pages too. All right. Okay, so I think that we are ready to adjourn this meeting, unless there is anything else. And what's the official phrase I say? I'm supposed to say? I should say. Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Oh, final. Thank you, everyone.